Hi everyone, my name is Terry Westwell and today's Tuesday, which means it's time to discuss our book of the week, which is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. First, this is a spoiler-free section, so if you haven't read this book yet, don't worry about it, it won't be spoiled for you here. There will be some spoiler-related things that I want to discuss, but that'll be later on in the video, and you will get plenty of warning. If you'd like to join in on any future book discussions, send me your thoughts, comments, or even a short video clip of you discussing the book, then I'll list the next upcoming 4 books in the description below. So by now I've read a few of Emily Henry's books. She tends to write really easy to read romances with lovable and relatable characters and a really sweet story. Some I've definitely liked more than others, like I loved the very mild enemies to lovers forced proximity of Beach Read, and despite the painfully predictable ending of Happy Place, I really liked the characters and their story. This one, however, was quite different to what I've read before by Emily Henry. Like, it's still a really easy to read romance, however, it just didn't feel like the romance element was that big of a part of it. It didn't feel like it was the main focus. I rated this book 3.5 stars, which I think is the lowest I've rated an Emily Henry book, and it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it in parts or that it was a particularly bad book, I just wasn't overwhelmed by it. Okay, so quick summary. 2 writers compete for the chance to tell the larger-than-life story of an heiress who has more than a few plot twists up her sleeve. When Margaret Ives, the famously reclusive heiress, invites Alice to the balmy little Crescent Island, Alice knows that this is it, her big break. And even more rare, a chance to impress her family with a serious publication. The catch? Pulitzer Prize-winning Hayden Anderson is sure of the same thing. So there's a 1-month trial period to unearth the truth behind one of the most scandalous families of the 20th century, after which she'll decide who will tell her story. But it's becoming abundantly clear that their story, much like the tale Margaret is spinning, could be a mystery, a tragedy, or a love ballad depending on who's telling it. If I had to compare this to any other book, it would probably have to be The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but what I will say is that this book does have more romance and events that happen during the present day, but it also doesn't contain as much detail or in-depth storytelling for events that happen in the past, but they do share a lot of similarities. I do think that I preferred this book over 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That in part could be because I did like the romance element in this book, but I think it was mostly just because I did really struggle with the pacing in the other book. Not that the pacing in this book was really all that good, because after reading it, I feel like I don't really have much to say about what actually happened. I liked the ending, and I liked the romance element, but there really wasn't that much of the romance. It was slow-paced and not that much really happened. I do wish that it'd spent more time getting to know the characters because I did really want to like them, but I just never felt like I connected to them. I feel like it sounds like I'm being a lot harsher on this book than I mean to be. It's just really difficult when a book is just sort of meh, because I don't have a ton of great things to say about it, so you're just mostly going to hear the negative, and in reality, it was a nice enough read. I just wasn't blown away by it. It was fine. Like, while I enjoyed the ending, it was a bit predictable. So as for the question, would I recommend the book? I don't know, probably not. Like, perhaps it's just that this one wasn't for me, but I've definitely preferred some of her other books where the romance was the primary focus. So will I be reading any more by Emily Henry? Absolutely. As I said, I've really liked some of her other books, and I'm not going to stop reading them just because one of them wasn't for me. So earlier in the video, I said that you would get plenty of warning for any upcoming spoilers. This is that point, so if you haven't read this book yet, I would suggest going doing that first, because beyond this point, there will definitely be spoilers. I meant it when I said that I honestly don't think there's much I can say about what happened in this book. It felt like we got way too bogged down in Margaret's past, and so we didn't end up spending all that much time with the main characters, so I never ended up getting attached to any of them. It was also quite a predictable story, including the ending. I mean, don't get me wrong, it had moments where it was a really sweet story or even really sad, like reading about what happened to her sister and her husband, but it also just felt like quite a lot of filler sometimes, just to explain why it is she gave up her child. And the main character was able to figure that out because of a conversation she had at the very beginning of the book and a very brief conversation with the love interest at the very end. But then everything in the middle was just Margaret saying how horrible life was growing up rich and in the public eye, so that later on when you discovered that she'd given her child up for adoption, you could kind of understand why. There was just a lot of it, and to be honest, life can suck just as much being poor with no social standing. You just have different problems. To be honest, it was just a slow-paced story of Margaret's life, and yet we were supposed to believe that these two characters had fallen in love despite not knowing each other and barely even being a part of the story. I just would have liked to have spent more time with those characters instead of jumping from hello to I love you and seeming to miss out everything in between. I think if I was to recommend this book and call it a romance, I think it would be super misleading. Also, just calling it literary fiction, I don't think works. Kind of like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, maybe it would work for me as a film, but just not as a book. Overall, the premise was a good one, and I didn't even mind that the ending was predictable. I don't like how it was executed, which is a shame because I usually really like Emily Henry's writing. Perhaps she was just trying to write something a little bit different to her usual romance, but personally I just don't think it really worked. But let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy the book? Next week we're discussing Immortal by Lynn, so don't forget to get your thoughts and comments in by Sunday the 8th of June at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram or Discord. The following week we'll be holding the reins, but don't forget if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below, along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose the genre that best suits you, and the best time frame to read it in. Thank you all for joining, and if you liked this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and I will see you next week. Bye. If you like romance, fantasy, or even thriller, basically anything fiction book related, then I suggest you head on over to the channel's intro video, where you can find out more information on how you can take part in this online book club. We announce books at least 4 weeks in advance, and we accept your bookish feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below a video, send in a voice note, or even send me a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message.